Everybody in here has a spiritual gift that God has given you. And He has given it to you for a reason. He wants you to use it to benefit others and to contribute toward the work of His kingdom. And so what we're trying to do in these times together is look at this passage in Romans chapter 12 that outlines for us 7 spiritual gifts that we're calling motivational gifts. These are gifts that God has placed inside of us that are our passions. It's your wiring, the way that you're made. And we want to try to understand that better so that we can find our place of joyful service in the kingdom and also have an understanding and appreciation for other people with vastly different giftings that God has created this beautiful tapestry of different giftings in the church so that we all work together for the common good. So let me just say a word or two as we get started. We're looking at the 6th gift this morning, which is the gift of administration or leadership. And we're going to explore that this morning, and I hope that you have your app open because you can take the inventory with us if you've got the app, and you can just have your personal information, hit submit as we work through it together. So don't get ahead of me. We're going to work through each question together, and Reed, if you'll help me out here. If you need a paper copy, if you don't have the app or don't use technology for whatever reason, got an allergy to it, you can raise your hand and he will hand you a paper copy, and we're happy for you to fill that out as well. But if you fill out the paper copy, be sure and put your name on the sheet and return the sheet to me at the end of class. Or if you don't make it up here to me, you can always put it in the box, the collection box at the back, and we can get it that way as well. So we're wanting to unwrap our spiritual gifts. So I will say to you that I know I have been talking a lot over the last few weeks, and we've not utilized these guys that are using the microphones for some discussion. We hopefully have a little bit today. That'll be pretty much true today and next week too. But after we finish the 7 gifts, I'm looking forward to then looking at what this means. And we got several sessions where we're going to kind of put all this together, and I'm going to have a lot of dialogue and discussion. So if you can just hang on as we get through the next 2 gifts, we'll have a lot of dialogue and discussion about the implications of what your gift is, your primary gift, and how it characterizes you as a person, how your secondary gift modifies your primary gifting, how that you can understand how you fit in the work of the local church based upon your gifting. And so we've got a lot of really great stuff to unpack and explore together as implications from these gifts in the weeks to come. Now, I will say this, I didn't mention it earlier, but next week, this week's spring break for kids at school, so we're going on vacation, and so next Sunday, Chris is going to be bringing the message at the worship hour, and David Swanner has agreed to do the class in here. So I hope that you'll be a part of that and look forward to it, because David has done a lot of work in local churches in as it regards involvement and spiritual gifting, and so he's got a really great insight that he's going to share with you, and I hope that you'll be here for that next week. All right, so we're moving to the 6th of the gifts that are listed in Romans 12, the gift of the administrator, someone who loves to organize, lead, or direct. So the passage says this in verse 8. Starts out, in His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. Now, the beautiful thing about all of these 7 gifts is that if you'll look at the passage again, you'll notice that he is emphasizing the reality that each one of us has a different gift, and whatever gift you have, you should go for it. Don't feel like, well, I wish I had this other gift or that gift. Don't question God's creative work in you. The gift that He's given you, He has given it to you intentionally. and purposefully. And He wants you to thrive and go headlong into that gifting. So, number 6, administration or leadership. If that happens to be the ability that you know is woven into your character, into your personality, I should say, he says, take that responsibility seriously. So the administrator is one that has this leadership and direction gifting. There's a functional need in the church that is being met, and that the administrator helps to keep us organized and increases our vision of what we can accomplish as a gathering of God's people. And we're going back to this chart again because each one of the gifts represents a part of the body. The church is the body of Christ, and the administrator, in our book, they call it the shoulders of the body. So that's what we're going to be looking at this morning. Now, as we compare the different gifts, the reason it is so important for you to complete this inventory. Now, some of you may think, well, I already know what my gift is. I'm not going to complete the inventory. Please indulge me and complete it anyway. Please, I beg of you. All right, so please do that. Or if you missed one, you can always go back on the app and take the inventory that you may have missed. If you need a paper copy of one of the previous inventories, please see me after class. I'll get it to you. We want everybody to take all 7 of the inventories because what we're mainly interested in is comparing your answers to the questions to see what your primary gifting is and your secondary gifting. This is the way we're moving forward at Northside when it comes to our ministries. So, when it comes to trying to organize ministries, when it comes so that we can be more effective in helping people to know God, to love each other and serve our neighbors, we do need some organization to take place, and when that organization takes place, we need to know where our giftings lie. Because if your gift is administration, and you don't have a gift for teaching, I don't really want somebody coming to you and hounding you to teach a class and making you feel guilty if you don't teach a class when you know it's not really what you're made for. You understand? I would rather us find the people that have the teaching gift and utilize those people because they're going to be more passionate and thrive in that gifting. So that's why we need everybody to fill out this inventory as much as possible as we build our gifts database moving forward. All right, so the administrator, the shoulders of the body. What is an administrator? An administrator is one who loves to organize, lead, or direct. Administrators shoulder the responsibility and carry the load of leadership. Now, let me just say a quick word here. I know that biblically and practically in churches, I'll just say it this way, there is a lot of discussion that could be and should be had regarding the topic of leadership and gender roles. Okay, that's a big area of discussion. I'm not going to open that Pandora's box right here and discuss it. There's a lot that we could say about it and explore it, and we need to at some point. However, I want to say right here that regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, this is not gender specific when it comes to gifting. There are a lot of women that naturally have a gifting for administration. Okay? So we have to find ways that that gifting can be used, whether you're a man or a woman. Okay, I just want to say that, and we'll just leave that now, and just I think we can all agree that if you have a real gift for organization, direction, leadership, God has given you that gift for a reason, and He wants you to use it. Okay, so we got to explore that, but this is not specific to men or women. So let's look at each one of the traits and try to determine how strong that your gifting may be in the, or not strong that your gifting may be in administration. So let's take it together. First of all, characteristics of an administrator. An administrator is highly motivated to organize that for which they are responsible. So would this describe you? To what degree would it describe you? You rank yourself from maybe never, seldom, sometimes, usually, mostly, or always. Whatever you feel first. This is your first inclination. Don't overthink it. Just for you, where would you rank yourself? And you mark yourself here. See, an administrator is somebody who loves a challenge. They love to dig in and develop. They're often jack-of-all-trades kind of people. They can just about do anything. You know, they've got lots of different skill sets. An administrator is somebody who's a builder. They want to see things built up, and so they just really kind of have a radar for naturally figuring out how to organize things well. So how would you say that describes you? To what degree does it? Secondly, an administrator expresses ideas and organization in ways that clearly communicate. Oftentimes, someone with a high administrative gifting is a pretty good communicator. They can express the need for something to be organized, and they think through it rather easily and clearly about how they think it should be organized, and they can communicate it in an understandable way. So usually administrators that communicate really clearly are people that love charts and diagrams and graphs, because they're visual people. It's like really kind of organizing it and laying it out pretty clearly. So what about you on number 2? 3, an administrator prefers to be under authority in order to have authority. Now that might seem a little confusing, so let me explain it. Administrators appreciate highly the need for leadership. And so since an administrator appreciates the need for leadership, they respect people that are in positions of leadership. And so if you've got administrative gifting, you're going to be very hesitant to want to swoop in and be disrespectful or usurp the authority of already established leadership structures. But you also feel a strong need that if something's not being led well, you really want it to be led well, and you feel a real drive to want to step in, but an administrator would only step in if they feel like that authority has been given to them. Are you with me? So that's what this is describing. Prefers to be under authority in order to have authority. So they respect the limits that are placed upon them. They want exact parameters. They like the freedom to be their own boss. What it means by respect parameters, an administrator, if you've got administrative gifting, it's like, okay, I'm willing to step in and take the lead on this, but tell me where the boundaries are. Because if you don't, I'm going to step over them because I'm going to get this thing organized and I'm going to get it done. So if there's some kind of area that I don't need to step over, you need to let me know that now. I'll tell you, whenever I was interviewing with the shepherds, with the search committee, one of my questions was, what are the boundaries? What are the sacred cows? I need to know the areas that I don't need to touch. Because if you're asking me to be the lead minister and to work from an administrative gifting, I need to know where the parameters are. Because you see, an administrator wants to step in and make it happen. And sometimes that can get you in trouble if you don't know, wait a minute, I went too far here. That's not kosher here, to do something of that nature. So that's what we're talking about here with number 3. Number 4, will not take responsibility, this is similar to the previous one, will not take responsibility unless delegated by those in authority. So many people, the reason this question is important is there are a lot of people in the church, men and women, and I think it's particularly acute when it comes to women. There are a lot of people that have phenomenal administrative gifting that is not being utilized in the church because they feel like that they don't have an opening to do it. Because, again, an administrator respects authority, respects those in leadership, and they would not dare step into that gifting unless they're given permission to do so. Are you with me? Unless they feel delegated to do so. So in the churches that I've been a part of, I have seen so many men, and particularly a lot of women, that I'm like, they're phenomenal organizers. It's like they're working secular jobs, and they got stuff organized and doing amazing things. And man, what if we could utilize that organizational skill in the church more adequately than we are. We might have a lot better, more efficient ministries and work going on if we encouraged that administrative organizational gifting more than maybe we have. You see, if a lot of times in churches, particularly in churches, I don't think this is true of Northside at all, but there are churches that have very kind of top-down, domineering kind of leadership, where it's like, we call the shots, we call all the shots, every shot, you don't do anything without getting permission first. And what happens is people that have administrative gifting go underground. They might leave the church, but they're going to go underground, and they're not using their gifts, and they're floundering. So, would this describe you? Will you not take responsibility unless delegated by those in authority? Are you real hesitant to do that? So how would you rank yourself there? Number 5, will assume responsibilities if no specific leadership exists. So if you've got a high leadership or administrative gifting, if you walk in, let me give a different kind of example. Let's say you walk into, there's a PTO meeting at school. And you walk in ready to be a part of this meeting, and you're looking around and you can't tell who's in charge. And it's like 10 minutes after start time, and it seems like nothing's happening, and you're like, what is going on here? It's going to bother. If you got administrative gifting, you're going to be going berserk. And if it looks like nobody is assuming responsibility, you're the kind of person that whenever there's you're on jury duty and there's 4 people that you're in a group with, and they say, okay, we're going to have some questions here, and we need a delegate from each of the groups to answer the question for the group, and nobody, you're going to step into that. Like, if nobody else is going to take responsibility, I'm going to do that, because you crave structure and you naturally want to take the reins. It's not that you're necessarily controlling, it's just that you want to see things go well, and you're willing to step into leadership if there's a vacuum of leadership. Okay? So how would you rank yourself there? Number 6, especially enjoys working on long-range goals and projects. So an administrator is somebody who wants to throw themselves into a project, and they appreciate time management, but they want to make sure that something is done and done well. And so rather than just like short bursts and like this and that, they want to see something that's more broad in scope, and they want to give themselves fully to it. So do you like working on long-range goals and projects? Number 7, administrator is often a visionary person with a broad perspective. They believe that they can accomplish whatever they visualize with the help of others. Usually an administrator has a bigger vision in scope than the people they lead. They just have the gift of being able to see down the road more than most people can. They got a lot of vision for what could be. So how would you describe yourself? Are you a visionary person with a broad perspective? Number 8. By the way, on the app, if you miss one of these slides, they're all on the app. You can click a button and you can download all these slides after the fact. Number 8, easily facilitates resources and people to accomplish tasks or goals. So an administrator is somebody who loves looking at the staffing, like the people power and the resources, and how can we organize this for the maximum efficiency of getting this job done. So they easily facilitate that and have a way of doing that, and organizing people, organizing resources, that kind of thing. Number 9, enjoys delegating tasks and supervising people. Now you're going to laugh at this next one. They love to tell people what to do. Now, don't think of that negatively. Not like they love to tell people what to do, but they just naturally have this in a good way. They enjoy distributing work and resources. So an administrator, unlike we looked at the servant gift before, a servant has a high radar for a need. So a servant sees that there's a need, and you know what they're going to do? They're going to step right in and they're going to take care of that need hands-on themselves. An administrator will see a need and they'll say, okay, here's a need, so how can we leverage people that have the right tools to get this done? And they'll start organizing a way to make that. Instead of stepping in themselves, they have a desire to want to try to arrange things to be able to make it happen. Are you with me? So they like to delegate tasks and supervise people. Number 10, an administrator will endure criticism in order to accomplish the task. As you can imagine, a leader, if you have a gifting for leadership, there is a certain burden that comes with that. And the burden is you are going to have a target on your forehead. Because a leader is somebody who's willing to step ahead, willing to step above the fray and lead. But that makes you a target for criticism. Even the best leaders are targets of criticism. But a person with administrative gifting has such a drive to want to make sure that things are led well that they also kind of develop a thick skin where they're willing to endure that criticism, because what I'm concerned most about is, yeah, people are going to criticize. You can't make everybody happy. All right? You just can't. And so administrator kind of has this viewpoint. You know, dogs don't bark at parked cars. We're going to move this puppy forward. We're going to move this thing down the road, and there are going to be dogs that are going to bark. But guess what? We're further down the road than we were, even with them barking all the way. And that's what I'm concerned about as an administrator. That's what you'd be thinking. Yeah, there are going to be those dogs barking, but guess what? We're moving down the road. We're making progress. We're growing. We're accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So, an administrator realizes that criticism is just an occupational hazard of the gifting you have. You got your eyes on the goal. You're not going to let criticism stop you from accomplishing the goal because you believe it's a worthy goal to lead. All right, number 11. An administrator has a great zeal and enthusiasm for what they're involved in. So an administrator is going to love to quickly move through tasks. They have a certain passion and energy and infectious enthusiasm to want to see it happen. So you're going to see a great deal of real energy and enthusiasm and zeal coming from a person that has an administrative gifting. How would you rank yourself? Number 12. An administrator finds the greatest fulfillment and joy in working to accomplish goals. So are you the kind of person that loves to see a project brought to completion? You see, the thing that would give you the most joy is something a project you've been working on. Maybe let's say that you've been willing to take some leadership role in United Way or Habitat for Humanity or some other kind of project, or maybe you're writing a book and it took you years to write the book, and you come to the end of it and it's done. We built the house. The family moved in. I wrote the book. It's now been published. The greatest joy for an administrator is when the long-term goal is now at the point of completion. It's like that is the best for the administrator. All right? Number 13 is willing to let others get the credit in order to get the job done. So if you've got an administrative gifting, you're going to be like, I don't really care who gets the credit. Some guy's over there claiming that he's done all, I know that I was working behind the scenes through leadership to organize this and organize that, and we got it done. We raised the funds. We got the project done, and this guy was over there taking the credit for it. I don't care. He can have the credit. We got it done. We got it done. That's what the administrator cares about. Let anybody get the credit, wants to get the credit. What I care about is accomplishing the task. And so an administrator then is going to be very liberal in their distribution of appreciation of others, because an administrator loves to organize, and they're going to say, you know what, we couldn't have got this done if we didn't have this person that did this, and she gave this amount of money, and he gave this amount of time, and just going to be a lot of attaboys, a lot of appreciation for everyone that has contributed toward accomplishing the task. So how would you say yourself there? Number 14. An administrator prefers to move on to a new challenge once something is completed. Would you say that's true of you? Once something's completed, you're ready to move on to the next thing. Administrators are not the kinds of people that want to stand around and shepherd something that has already been built. They don't want to maintain stuff. An administrator is a builder. So once something has been completed, they don't want to hang around and maintain that thing. It's like, we'll delegate other people to do that. I'm on to the next thing, the next big vision, the next big task. You see, that's what an administrator is going to be prone to do. Number 15, an administrator constantly writes notes to self. It's funny, in the book, if you've been reading along in the book that we're using by the Fortunes, the wife, I forget her name. Who's got the book? What is it, Katie? Okay, yeah, Katie Fortune. She writes part of this section, and it's so apparent that and I think she even says in the book that her number one gifting is administration. And she's giving all these personal examples, and it's just humorous because you can just tell that she just absolutely is this. And she says in there, she says, one thing that is true of every administrator, it's like she's dogmatic about this. She says, every administrator does this, constantly writes notes to self. All right, let me give you an example. I hesitate to do this, but I guess I will. So, Michelle has taken, she's not even in here, so I'm going to talk about her. All right, so Michelle has taken this. Her number one gifting is administration. And I'm not surprised at all, because you know what Michelle has? I saw it yesterday. We're getting ready to go on vacation. You know what she has? She has a little notebook. And if you look in that notebook, you know what's in that notebook? Years of lists, to-do lists. You know what she does whenever we're packing for vacation? It is 2 pages of all the things that have got to be done by tomorrow. All right, it's just list after list after list. Administrators love lists. They love to-do lists because they think, if I don't write this down, I will forget it. All right, how true is that of you? All right, if that's real, if you say always, then you may be pretty strong in administrative gifting if you're constantly writing notes to self. Number 16 is a natural and capable leader. So an administrator has their own style of leadership, and because of that, here's where the rub comes. You have such a strong sense of wanting to see things led well that oftentimes administrators will bump heads with one another. I can't tell you how many times in church work that I've been doing for years and years now, like almost 20, that I have seen a lot of the personality clashes that happen in churches happen whenever I'll look at the people and they're both administrators. Because they both want to see things led well and go well, but they have different ways of going about it. And an administrator will oftentimes feel like that their way is the way, and they're not real flexible on changing the methodology of the leadership. And so you'll see that kind of clash. They prefer to be the one solely in charge. People with administrative gifting really don't do team leadership all that well. It's like, I want a team that, yes, they want a team, but they want people they're delegating to, and they're the ones calling the directional shots. Okay? So you might feel that in yourself to some degree. So how would you rank yourself? Number 17, knows when to keep old methods and when to introduce new methods. Again, for an administrator, what matters most is the accomplishment of the task, and to accomplish the task, sometimes that means that you have to be patient with people, and an administrator is willing to do that and willing to keep old methods, but at the same time they know how to intentionally and deliberately and in a pacing kind of way introduce new methods when they're needed. So an administrator is somebody, unlike an exhorter. You know, an exhorter is really ready to see things happen, and they're kind of short on patience. But an administrator is going to be long on patience because they're as long as we're seeing progress move forward. They're going to be slow on patience if they feel like things have stalled out. They're going to get aggravated real quick. But if they feel like things are moving forward, it's like, okay, we can work with this. It's going to take some time. We can be patient. But as long as we're moving forward, they know when to keep old methods and when to introduce new ones. Okay? Number 18, enjoys working with and being around people. Usually administrators are people kinds of people, because they're really great observers of human behavior. So they really work pretty well with people, particularly if they feel like that they've got some delegated responsibility of leadership. They know how to not be like overly domineering all the time. They know how to be able to work with people to get the task accomplished, unless the administrative gifting has become poisoned, which we'll talk about in just a second. Number 19, they want to see things completed as quickly as possible. So administrators, what they don't like are delays and red tape and people dragging their feet. They hate delays in progress. You want to frustrate an administrator to the nth degree? You tell them that they've got authority, but then you put every barrier in place to keep them from actually making any progress. And you're going to see somebody lose it. I hope I'm not revealing too much about myself that I have done that. All right. But yeah, you put a lot of roadblocks and delays and red tape in front of an administrator, and they're not very happy. Okay. Number 20, does not enjoy doing routine tasks. So an administrator cannot stand repetitive work. It is boring to them. They want servers on their team. They're not real prone to actually serving themselves. They want others serving because they don't like the routine tasks. So Katie Fortune in the book, she kind of reveals a lot about herself in there and says how that she absolutely, as an administrator, cannot stand housework. The mundane laundry and dishes and cleaning and over again. She says, so we have just had to agree early on that the house is going to be, she said, it's going to be maintained, but it's going to be lived in. It's going to be really lived in, because for an administrator, they cannot stand the routine tasks because they got bigger fish to fry, bigger goals in mind. They would rather have somebody delegated to that. Let's hire somebody to do this stuff because I've got a higher calling for a bigger vision and more leadership kind of gifting. So does that make sense? How would you rank yourself there? So, as you can imagine, the administrative gifting is an important gift that needs to be utilized in the church. Now, I know when we think of the church, some of us, I don't know how many of you, but I know some of us, when we hear leadership or administration, we immediately go to, all right, that's the elders. All right? Maybe. Some elders have administrative gifting. I think we do need some elders in an eldership that have administrative gifting. If all of them have administrative gifting, there's probably not going to be much shepherding that's going on, and that's not very healthy. I mean, it would be better in an eldership if you've got representatives of a lot of different giftings, compassion gifting, and exhorter gifting. So there's vision, and energy, passion for making things happen. So you got to represent. So what I'm simply saying here is, don't just think, well, this gift is only going to apply to people that are going to be like committee heads, or they're going to be leadership, in leadership roles like the eldership. There's lots of different ways in which any person can thrive in the gifting of administration and do some really, really amazing stuff. I mean, there's all kinds, you can just imagine there's an endless need for people that have this gifting in the church. So, and sometimes we need to partner people with two different kinds of gifting to really see something happen well. For example, we've been talking recently about like our greeter ministry. Okay, our guest, we called it guest services at the last church, but our greeter ministry. All right, so you can imagine with a greeter ministry, you need somebody that's on that team that has probably like a compassion gifting, that is very like warm and bubbly, maybe even an exhorter, somebody that's very extroverted and gonna make sure and touch base with people that are visiting. But you know what? If you've got somebody that's just got that gifting and they don't have any administrative gifting, then one Sunday they're on vacation and we don't have anybody greeting because they didn't think to schedule somebody. An administrator, person with administrative gifting, may not be the most warm and bubbly personality, But you know what? There will never be a missing link because they will schedule everything. Now, I'm using that as an example, but there's any endless areas of ministry in the church where you can see you need not just, we need people with, that just shows you why we need the diversity of gifting, and you partner people together. How great would it be if you've got somebody that's in a ministry like that, and you've got somebody that's got really great administrative gifting and somebody that's got a compassion gifting, and they're working together and making sure that all of that gets accomplished. Now, but as with every gift, the administrative gift can become polluted. So let's look at some of the things about the possible pollution of the administrative gifting. Say this at the first. Have you ever heard this quote? If Satan can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Administrators have to fight against that big time. Administrators have to force themselves to take time to smell the roses, because administrative gifted people are always hyper-focused on the task, the doing. And they can oftentimes miss life that's going right by them and miss the relationships that are around them in their life. And so if you have a high administrative gifting, this is something you've got to really guard against. Because you see, an administrator can become easily upset when others don't share the same goals or vision that they have. Again, a lack of progress can become unbelievably frustrating for an administrator. So if this is your gifting, here are some checkpoints. Learn that prayer changes things, not just your sweat. Instead of relying so much on your effort, learn to lean more into God, who really gets things done. And learn that all the preparation you could do, all of the persuasion you can muster, all of the presentation that you can try to do to get people on board with something, that can only take you so far. And so just be aware of that. Secondly, an administrator develops outer callousness due to being the target of criticism. So you can imagine, as a leader, if you're constantly being hit with a barrage of criticism all the time, it can make you become hardened toward people in an effort to protect yourself. So a checkpoint would be focus on cultivating patience with others and work on being compassionate and understanding. So that's something that you really want to focus in on if this is one of your strong giftings. Number 3, you can regress into using people to accomplish your goals. You can see where somebody with a leadership or administrative gifting, they're so about the task, so about progress, that actually they can be picking up the phone as if to call somebody out of genuine concern, but then the conversation always drifts to, oh, by the way, could you help me out with this? Because it's always about the task. And that could really sabotage not only relationships, but could sabotage your effort to want to actually get done what you're trying to get done, because you're not prioritizing relationships. Instead, you're just kind of being inconsiderate and even hurtful of people because you're always just trying to move the thing forward. Number 4, tends to drive self and neglect personal and family needs. So an administrator can get their priorities askew and really be so hyper-focused on the task or the job that they need to learn to say no to some things and guard their life with margin. I'll give you a personal testimony here. Several years ago, I was preaching full-time. I had been invited to teach at a kind of like a seminary and offered to teach a couple classes, which I accepted to do. I was trying to write a book. I don't remember what all else. There are 5 or 6 other things. And I start looking at my life and look at my schedule, and I'm like, on paper, I've got time to get all this done. And I did. And you know what it looked like when I came home at the end of the day and my kids are playing in the floor and my wife's wanting to have a conversation with me? I wasn't working, but I was like this, glazed over, because I was so driven that, like a computer screen, whenever you've got all the windows, down at the bottom, you got like 15 windows open. You got the one open in front of you, but there's like 10 other things running in the background. That was me. I couldn't even be present with my own family because I had so many things going on. I could get it done on paper as far as time management, but my brain, there was no margin left. Are you with me? There's all this stuff running in the background constantly. So you see, that can be a danger. And so if you got a higher administrative gifting, Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. You got to learn to say no to some things, guard the margin in your life, and don't sacrifice the health of your family and relationships on the altar of success. And then fifth, the administrator can neglect routine home responsibilities due to intense interest in the job. So, you can have a person that has high administrative gifting that becomes a workaholic, and you might need to put some checks in your life, some guardrails in your life to aid you in a way that you can learn to turn it off and realize that there's a time and a season for everything, and right now I need to leave the job at home, or I need to leave the task at work, rather. I need to leave it there and be here and be with people. So that's kind of a check. There's any number of examples of people with administrative gifting you can find in the Bible. Probably the one that kind of jumps out, at least in the book too, that they pointed out was Joseph. Joseph was given charge of being in over famine relief over Egypt. He was a visionary person, clearly. He dreamed big dreams, had a zeal for it. He had tremendous leadership ability. He worked underneath Pharaoh. He enjoyed supervising those tasks. He certainly enjoyed that challenge, and he was motivated to organize and get it done. So this may be one of your stronger giftings, maybe not. We're all different. But whatever it is, if you filled out the survey online, push submit on the app, and we'll have your results. If you got the paper copy, give that to me as you leave, and we'll log that in for you. So just one more next week. We've got one more gifting to look at, one more gift. And after we look at that one, then we'll be able to compare each one of them. And after next week, next week, David, it'll be 2 weeks. So David's going to do something standalone regarding gifting. So when I come back in 2 weeks, we'll look at the final of the 7 gifts. After that, I should have all your results. And then I'll come in here and hopefully have either emailed or give you in person a copy of your overall chart that shows where your strongest gifts are. And then we get into the fun stuff. What does this mean? Okay? All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here.